All right, everyone. Those of you who ran into Allie and myself at Clio or MTMP and are now proud owners of a Lunch Hour Legal Marketing hat, we're going to answer 3 of those questions that you asked, starting with coffee versus lunch.
Hey, it's Michael Allen. I'm a lawyer in Charleston, South Carolina. I do commercial real estate and business law. Question, which is the more effective in-client marketing meeting, a coffee or a lunch?
Coffee or lunch, Gyi? I'm calling from Seattle, the land of coffee, but we are Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, so I'm split here.
Well, the first thing I hear is the practice area. And so I think that makes a big difference. Maybe not specifically between lunch and coffee, but how you take those meetings, it's all about the client. What's the client want to do? That's the right answer. I will say this, though. If you're able to find ways to do dinners with multiple clients, it's not for everybody, or referral sources, right? Other professional services providers, you get an opportunity to cross-pollinate professional relationships in a networking dinner. So it's kind of more that one-to-many kind of networking thing. But for a straight-up client meeting, my answer is what the client wants to do. And, obviously, I think there can be more intimacy and there's a longer commitment. But the trade-off is, of course, that coffee's convenient. People on the move, they're willing to do coffee. So, I don't know, lead with the coffee and then maybe take it to lunch or dinner.
Totally agree on coffee. I mean, because he specifically said client, I think when you're talking about referrals and relationships, you're doing lunch, ball games, that kind of stuff. But this is a client. Lunch kind of feels, it's a little too intimate, and frankly, it's too long, right? I'm thinking about the brand new client coming in. We're going to sit down for lunch. Am I paying hourly for this? Right? It just feels too much. I think coffee.
But not everybody drinks coffee.
Well, the good thing is I didn't drink coffee till I moved to Seattle, and you can't do a meeting in Seattle without drinking coffee. But
decaf?
Do coffee. I don't do decaf. I'm now all in. When we start these and Adam's like, let's get some energy, I always preload. So I'm team coffee on this one. Okay. Next question, Mr. Lockwood.
My name is Matt Donaldson, and I work for Silverleaf Legal Group as the operations coordinator. And the question that I have is it better to position your socials around a person inside of your company or the company itself?
Great question.
Conrad liked that one.
I did like that one.
What do you think, Conrad?
Well, there's a 101 answer to this, and then there's a advanced answer to this. The 101 answer is it is always easier to be social as a person than a brand. People have stronger personalities by definition of the term, and that's easier to be social with than a brand. However, this is the nuance that is the 201 answer. There are some platforms, Facebook, for example, where the advertising opportunities really on those personal accounts are not as robust as what you can do with that branded account. And so I think you need to think through what you can advertise and how you can advertise and how you push that content out and what the limitations of the different platforms are for person over a brand. How's that?
That sounds good to me. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're doing social, you're doing person in some form. You might do it under a firm account or a logo, but the people dancing on TikTok, it's not, law firms aren't dancing on TikTok like the actual buildings. It's the people that work at the law firms.
All right. No buildings dancing on TikTok. And finally, not yet. You just wait for the AI on that one, baby. Okay. Question number 3, Mr. Lockwood.
My name is Erin Gerstenzang. I'm a criminal defense attorney in Atlanta. And my question regarding SEO and in particular social media, if I don't want the entire internet calling my law office, how do I target my leads for other attorneys? If what I'm looking for is referrals from other attorneys, I want to focus my targeting on that community as opposed to just the internet's help desk.
Gyi. The internet's help desk. I love this question and how she framed it.
Great question, Erin.
She's tired of doing intake for people who are never going to hire her. That's what I'm reading behind her question. What's your answer to her? How does she target lawyers?
Yes. Well, the shortest answer is custom audiences, right? Comes down to targeting. But, if you've got people who have opted in to receive messaging from you, if you've got people that are already in your CRM, places like LinkedIn, you can advertise directly to them there. You can, if you've got a big enough list, you can do custom audiences on Google. Obviously, email marketing in general, nurturing referral relationships with other lawyers is a great way to do that. I think the flip side of this is this, though, because and the second half was focusing on who am I targeting in terms of the referrals. But if you want to filter better on the front end, right? If you're the help desk for the internet, filter. Right? Set higher initial consultations, set filtering through forms, set filtering through your virtual receptionist so that you're qualifying the leads better before they get to you and take up, more of your time to figure out whether they're going to be a client for you or not.
Yeah, this is all about targeting, right? And this is one of the reasons that this can be so effective and why social can be so effective. I also think about just individually your personalized outreach as like if you're really trying to build referrals, I don't think the brand building is sufficient. The brand awareness is going to be insufficient if you are trying to get referrals from other attorneys. I think it's a help, it's an assist, but I don't think it's enough. And so I think you're spending time and thinking through so LinkedIn's the obvious example. You can find attorneys who do these type of practice areas in LinkedIn. You can look at Avvo, you can look at all these directories and find what that list should look like, and then how to reach out to them. I would also think of the thing that hits me. You said your criminal defense. The thing that hits me immediately is immigration lawyers and criminal defense. Sadly, often have an overlap of clientele. That's a conversation that we don't want to have nor solve on the pod, but that is a truism. And so I think you can be even more specific, especially if you're spending time on that individual outreach by identifying those practice areas. And again, immigration, criminal defense, high overlap, unfortunately, to build those relationships one-on-one, because those referrals are going to take, it's a long slog. It's a small number of referrals that you need to put a lot of time into developing.
I think the other thing too that I feel like we got to mention here is that there's a whole, and you alluded to it, but there's a whole messaging component to this, because you got to, quote unquote, build your referral personas. Some people are going to refer to you because they view you as the person who does this thing, and they trust you. They know you're going to handle this referral properly. Other people are going to refer to you because they like you, because they're your friend. You went to law school together. Maybe you're in the same youth sports thing with your kids, and so your messaging needs to reflect that, right? You're going to it's going to be a much different message that you're going to put out into the world if you're trying to communicate like, I am the expert on this thing and this one thing, versus, and it's not that they're not mutually exclusive. You can do both. You can be, some of your referral sources are because they think you're the expert. Some of them are because they're friendly, but you really want to think about the different reasons why people refer to you. We see this is a big thing in the PI space, but gosh, it's a lot more fickle than lawyers want to lead on. One day someone refers to you, the next day they go to dinner with somebody else, they refer to somebody else, the next day they refer to somebody else. And so anyway, keep that in mind. I think understanding the whys and the hows that people make those referral decisions is really important in terms of crafting your message.
And at the risk of beating this answer to death, I think we've given you 4 answers to your one question, so you might have to give back 3/4 of your hat. But thank the referrers. It's so obvious, and yet people don't do it, and it makes such an impression. The handwritten thank you note, the flowers, the gift certificate to the local restaurant, right? Those things, it makes a difference. And I would also argue that you should not only send that thank you when the referral turns into a client, right? You're thanking them for referring someone, not referring a client, right? And that's a point that I really, really strongly believe in. But do the thank yous. Like, your parents taught you better, but no one is sending those thank yous out. So do that.
I got to say one more thing.
Go. Here's 5. You need to send your hat back.
You just
and Gyi will send you his
me,
coffee mug.
This is a huge one. Keep your referrals informed about the status of the case. It's a great way to stay top of mind, to show that the matter case, whatever you want to call it, it's being handled properly, the client's being handled properly, and it gives them a sense of encouragement that they made the right decision, right? Because they want to know, like, hey, did I refer this person to somebody who actually is handling this, is delivering a great experience, is keeping this client informed? And the more you're keeping the person who referred to you informed, it's implicit that you're keeping the client informed and keeping the case moving along and up to date. So that's a really powerful one in terms of keeping that relationship nurtured.
Absolutely love it. When we come back, we're going to do a quick review of us. Thank you, user. iPad Hooligan. And then we're going to get into a line in the spam when your marketing is too much.
And we're back with another review of the show. Fun and info coexisting in harmony. You're fun, I must be info, I guess. From iPad Hooligan, 5 stars. Thank you, iPad Hooligan. These guys are smart, no doubt about that. But what makes the show great to listen to is the dynamic between them and the fun they seem to be having. We're really putting on a great mask there. You'll want to come back for every episode to listen and learn. Thank you, iPad Hooligan, and thank you, Conrad, for making this show so much fun. If you like what you're listening to, please do leave us a review. Contribute at #LHLM. We've got hats. We want to give them to you. Record a question. Question video gets you a hat.
Todd Verweer and Josh Hodges, hats coming to you in the mail as we speak. Thank you for being loyal listeners and questioners. Josh, hit us up on TikTok. Ask us a question on TikTok. We'll answer here and throw it up on TikTok as well.
And now, a line in the spam.
Ooh.
So we started talking about spam. I don't even know how spam came up. Oh, it came up because of Conrad's favorite thing on Meta, which is the @everyone notification.
Oh.
Conrad, why don't you tell us, for those that aren't familiar with what that is?
So if you want to annoy everyone you know on social media, you can create a group, and then every time you post something, you can @everyone them, and they will be notified. And they will very quickly learn to tune you out because nothing you say is interesting, and you're just trying to drive fake engagement. I hate the @everyone. I think I can't imagine any case in which you have a sizable group of people where you have to notify every single person that something has happened. I just can't.
The emergency alert system.
Emergency alert system would be great. All right, fair enough. I take it back. So the government should use @everyone. Other than that, I mean, here's the thing. The reality is the algorithms on social, they are designed to encourage and reward engagement, which is great. And @everyone seems like an easy way to drive more engagement, but it's not, because people start ignoring it and blocking you. And so I find, and this is thematically what we want to talk through here right now, the more scalable your marketing system is on social, or anything for that matter, the more annoying it is and the less effective from a quality perspective it can actually be. Now, it might be really effective in notifying a bunch of people at scale. So email spam, for example, from a scale perspective is fantastic. From a cost and scale perspective, you can reach tons of people. But is the effectiveness really there? And I would call that into question. And so hit me, Gyi.
So
tell me where I'm wrong.
So, well, no, I'm not saying you're wrong. So this conversation then developed into some other examples that we see. And one that comes to mind that's similar is the tagging a bunch of people, right? So you write a LinkedIn post and then you tag a bunch of people. And the idea is that those people get notifications and then they want to come and engage on your post. What do you think about that?
Well, again, this comes back to whether or not it's actually relevant. And by the way, you and I do this all the time, right? You're going to see this on Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. When you hear this episode, you may first see it on LinkedIn or Facebook, and invariably Gyi and I will tag each other because it's relevant to me and Gyi. And if we're, for example, if we answer a question from someone and we can find where they are on social, we'll probably tag them, the questioner, on that because it's relevant to that person, which is great. But if you just tag 27 people in a attempt to get more distribution, more engagement, eventually people stop listening to you, right? It is the henny penny, sky's falling, no one listens to you because it's not all that interesting. And eventually you start to get ignored. And
well, my thing, go ahead. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Go. Let's keep beating on this.
Well, so Nikki Black, in my case, I've been friends with Nikki for over a decade, and she does these awesome legal tech roundups on LinkedIn. And she tags me and a bunch of other people on the roundup, and then she poses follow-up questions. Doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I'm grateful that she does it because it gives me a heads up that it's going on. To me, the nuance there is like, I'm friends with Nikki. I don't mind if Nikki tags me. It's when somebody I don't know is tagging me, and and we're even worse, they're tagging me with like some kind of offer or something, right? That's just like rank spam. Anyway, so tactical advice here is like, look, you got people that are in your professional network and you're tagging them. I think there's nothing wrong with it, but I think the other thing too is this goes back to a lot of the basics and like the social media etiquette stuff is like, you got to know your audience. Like, you got to know who you're tagging. Like, if they're people that you're friends with that aren't going to mind, great. Even if it's a friend who's like, hey, can you stop tagging me? Don't tag them again, right? Maybe with some relationships you want to ask in advance. I don't know. The other one that comes up in this context, similar, is this idea of the engagement pod or the follower network, which we talked about before. And Conrad, you want to talk a little bit, explain to the good people what this is?
This is a hot button for Gyi, and for a bunch of what I will call it. If you want to ever get Gyi pissed off, he got me going with ROI last episode. We can get him going with the follower network. The follower network is basically a paid opt-in where a circle of people, we used to have the link wheels. This is the link. Well, most of you don't remember link wheels because you haven't been doing SEO forever, but you used to have link wheels. Now we have these follower networks and it's automated, where there's a circle of people that will rotate commenting on everyone's other posts. And they're very easy to sniff out because those comments, which do drive the algorithm, are super, super generic, and they will frequently be nonsensical to what is actually being said. And if you actually spend the time to analyze them, you will see the same verbatim comment from one person to the next within that wheel over time, right? And so this is just outsourced comment spam. And, Gyi, I'm surprised. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but this feels pretty easy to algorithmically detect, and yet we still see it.
Yeah, it works. There's kind of two, and I think this is kind of the point of our segment here is like, spam works. Spam works until it doesn't. Spam works until it becomes a professional liability. In the engagement pod thing, and I'm going to put aside all the legal ethics stuff, right? If you're a lawyer, like, is it false and misleading advertising to pay people to, like your stuff or comment on your stuff without disclosing that? It's arguably that it is. But I'm going to put that aside.
What if you're a marketer, Gyi? What if you're a marketer?
Well, you're not. If you're a marketer doing it on behalf of yourself, then you're not subject to the rules of professional conduct. But if you're
because you have no ethics, marketers.
Well, I made a push for a marketing code of ethics a long time ago, and all the marketers piled on me and were like, "You can't do that." Anyway,
you want to call anyone out, Gyi? Anyone? You want to name anyone?
I don't.
On.
But my point is that you see this stuff. I mean, I get these emails, same as you do, same as all the listeners do. And in fact, there was one recently. I was like, 50,000 followers and comments, and it's all real and all this stuff, or it looks real. It doesn't look real. And so you think, you're like, look, I'm going to give this thing a try, or like your marketing agency gives it a try. And you start your impressions go up, all these vanity social media metrics start going up. But you got to remember, no one's calling you and being like, hey, I was looking at your comments and gosh, these look like you're paying for them, and like they're coming in from all over the world, and it's on some video about your local whatever. It doesn't look authentic. No one's calling you to tell you that. Guess what they're doing? They're, as Conrad said, they're just going to start to ignore you. And if they get annoyed enough about the whole situation, they're going to block you. And so the whole point of this thing, this line in the spam is that, we get it. It's competitive out there. You want to take a shortcut, but the harm to your reputation can be much greater than the increase in reach or the perception that you're like this super influencer. We do the same thing. We talk about the same thing in the context of some of this like generic social media content where it's like you see like 10 different law firms who are using the same social media company, posting the same social media because you feel like you need to be there.
Right.
Anyway, so again, so what's the takeaway here? It's like,
well, let me counterpoint this. It does work, right? And this is so. I think you mentioned the followers, the paid followers. I think there are two ways to look at this, and they're both relevant. Number one is the perception that you are an influencer, the sheer volume of followers.
So you can sell your coaching service.
It's a ooh. You want to name anyone?
No.
I keep trying, Gyi. Okay, so at our next podcast, Gyi and I will be doing shots until Gyi gives up some names. I'm joking, maybe, but take the purchased followers. There is the perception that you are an influencer. There is the perception that you are good at what you do because of the sheer volume, right? And I cannot discount that. On the flip side, what actually happens, like if by the way, if anyone would like another 20,000 followers, please send me $100 and I will make that happen for you in 24 hours. Okay. And you're overpaying. But
I was going to say, 50% off.
Gyi will give you the discount 100,000, or was it 20,000? Anyway,
I'll do it for $1 less than Conrad offers on the show.
Excellent. When you do that, what happens to the algorithms and what actually shows up in those systems is they start to recognize that no one, from a percentage perspective, actually cares about what you're talking about, right? And this is where you see those accounts that have tons and tons of followers and yet really, really limited engagement, because the people who care about what they're talking about aren't, by and large, in Uzbekistan, right? And that's where these things do not turn into clients. Now, so there's a flip side. There is an upside in the perception that you are an influencer, somehow have been saying lots of very, very witty, interesting things over the past. So someone may choose to follow you. On the downside, I think this actually hurts you algorithmically in performance on the social networks. And I keep looking at a small number of they're not just my clients, but law firms out there that have a small, albeit amazingly successful social presence because it has been really organically driven by local engagement. You're never going to do crazy numbers of followers locally when you have targeted effort. But when you do it, you get the clients from it. When you do it correctly, when you have that small group of super engaged people who have affinity for your brand, you actually turn them into clients. And that's the game anyway, right? No one has retired on their number of followers.
Yeah. And again, there's a bunch of other spam tactics we could talk about. I do think it's interesting too that there is there's a certain amount of legislating for taste in some of this, because some people, they just don't care, right? They don't, it's not, they're not looking into it. They expect that there's a certain amount of fakeness, the fake reviews, fake engagement, lead gen in Google business profiles, cold email outreach, but some people don't. And so again, for me, on balance, the cost benefit of the reputational harm from it just isn't worth it. I mean, I say that, and some people say, look, it's working for me. It's actually generating business. I'm selling my coaching program. I'm getting guests on my podcast, or I'm becoming a guest on other people's podcasts because I got this cold outreach going on. But I think long term, that's where it comes back to potentially bite you, because people they see it and they say, hey, look, if you're willing to do this, like it's at least some indicator of, your willingness to mislead people in some way. And so I would say be your authentic self. And like Conrad said, it just tends to work better anyway in the long run.
And I think the key here is Gyi said cold outreach, scalable cold outreach. The beauty of this is like, it's actually cheap to do, right? So from a cost effectiveness perspective, that may actually turn into something great. Having said that, I think that the people for whom cold outreach works, you're probably not getting a ton of quality. You know, we get hit up, Gyi, once or twice a week from cold outreach to have a guest show on the podcast, which means A, they don't listen to the podcast because otherwise they would know we really don't have guests on here. And B, like, we don't know these people. And the people who are being pitched would do a much better job of spending 3 to 6 months building a relationship with one of us. I'm at the risk of trying to create the roadmap to be a guest on Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, which we're probably not going to do because it's been a Conrad and Gyi show as opposed to the guests pitching themselves show. The way to do it is not through cold outreach. I think someone who spent time, and again, I don't want to make this about us, but spend the time, and if you want high quality, building those relationships over time is how to do it, as opposed to the cold outreach.
We are unfortunately out of time for today's episode. Thank you to our longtime subscribers. Thank you to those who have submitted questions and have now received a beautiful Lunch Hour Legal Marketing hat. If you haven't subscribed, please do check us out on YouTube and Apple and Spotify and a bunch of other podcasty type places. We do appreciate you listening, and we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, for Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, Gyi and Conrad, farewell.
Money makes a it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world